So what we're talking about right now is my fellow co-hosts. They're making fun of me right now because
Don't we always?
yeah, because I have a genetic predisposition to not liking chewing noises or drinking noises and stuff like that. Because
Or
I
Or
this,
ice,
hold on,
or
hold on. Or
ice.
this.
oh, silently raging inside. No, it's more like, all right, you do what I
Crunch,
hate the
crunch
most.
it, crunch
I
it.
Go
can't.
It's too big, the ice.
There
ahead.
we go.
Oh my god. Oh, goosebumps. Look at that. Oh, I'm raging.
Triggered.
So for the past 2-3 episodes, like our producer does a wonderful job with producing our episodes and stuff. And, I scrub it a little bit more before it goes into, unnecessarily so, but I scrub it anyway because I'm a little OCD too. So I got a lot of issues going on. And
It sounds like you need a therapist.
yeah, I might need a therapist. Alcohol is my therapy. So anyway, I got my 23andMe report. I don't know if have you guys ever done 23andMe?
We did Ancestry.
Right. So basically, I don't know if they send you updated emails like every so often.
do,
They send
yeah.
you like, hey,
But not with like genetic.
yeah. So anyway, they're like, hey, you might be genetically predisposed to misophonia, right? I was like, oh, that explains a lot, because anytime I hear someone chewing, it drives me crazy, right? So yeah, that's my disability, guys. And I think that this
I've never heard this.
Not a
in our,
disability.
this
how
allows
many,
me
how many years have we been together? I've never heard this.
this allows me
until this moment right now.
this allows me to get on planes earlier.
Maybe just because you found out, you think you are.
Yeah, I think this allows me to get on planes earlier.
don't think
and
so.
allows me to
I don't think
park
so.
closer to the supermarket. I don't have to walk
You
far.
have perfectly fine legs. Just walk.
But just in case, like, if it's a long walk from my parking spot, I hear somebody chewing, it might be debilitating.
You're gonna
So-
fall and
so
pass out.
You self-diagnose yourself.
No.
No, 23andMe.
23andMe and
did it.
WebMD said that I have this problem.
WebMD is lies.
I can't tell you how many times WebMD told me I had cancer. I'm still here.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, what are you drinking today?
The same as the last episode.
It tastes better. I gotta admit, it tastes better than the first.
Well, that's because you got version 1, the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
one, right? You
Yeah.
got version 2, so this is gonna be a little bit better.
Mhm.
So today we are drinking. What are we drinking? It's a Sbagliato.
Sbagliato. Not Spaglione or Spagliano, whatever you said before.
Spaglione. Yeah. It's supposed to be a Negroni with prosecco, but I misunderstood the instructions and made a Negroni and just poured.
Gin.
Gin.
No.
Prosecco.
Negroni has gin in it, but I basically made a Negroni and I just poured prosecco over it, which
Yeah.
is not what you're supposed to do. And it's
Supposed to replace the gin with the
yeah, now we know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is pretty tasty.
Yeah,
and
okay.
and in the first version, I put dried oranges, but wet oranges are better.
Well, it's gonna get wet regardless.
Touche. I think you need to go see a therapist. I got a problem. I think you got a problem.
No, we did 2 episodes in one day, so we are a few drinks in.
We're very drunk.
So we're not that focused AF.
Not at all.
I'm focused AF.
Are you focused AF, Ben?
No,
No,
he's
not really.
he's not.
Okay.
I got a genetic predisposition.
He has mental
I got a mental issue.
Fun.
All right, guys, you guys ready to start this podcast?
Yes.
do it.
All right, let's go.
Welcome to Focus AF.
My name is Ben,
Karis.
This is Jen.
This is Ro.
and we are kind of focused AF.
Kinda.
Yes.
I'm
A
trying
little
to
bit.
We got this. All right.
So anyway, what are we talking about today, Jen?
We have special guests.
A very special guest.
Who do we
It
have?
is a special month, so we brought in a special guest to teach us a few things. So, I mean, I'm meeting him for the first time, so why don't you do the introduction, Ben?
So how did we meet Rylan? Oh, he answered a classified ad.
Well, this is starting off
This is not a lie. This is not a lie.
On Craigslist?
No, I think it was
Facebook.
It was a Facebook classified ad. Hey, I'm looking for an editor, and Rylan reached out.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Rylan was the first to reach out. And for anyone who says that the early bird doesn't get the worm, that's a complete lie. Because everyone who came in after Rylan, I was like, we were already interviewing someone. So
How long
better
ago
luck
was
next
this?
time. A couple months ago,
Nice.
earlier this year. You guys know this because you guys we use the same IPS provider, right?
Mhm.
So in order for us to make IPS work for us, we need to have a faster delivery time. And our current setup or our previous setup with just one editor wasn't quite going to cut it because of our volume.
Mhm.
We needed just a little bit of help to help us move our post production
That's
just a
right.
little quicker. We came with good references, very strong references. And before IPS or before we onboarded this new IPS program into our workflow, I think we were delivering right around 2 to 3 months. After we started this IPS process or we started incorporating this into our regular workflow, maybe a little quicker.
Pretty good. It does help
Yeah.
with the IPS to get those expected delivery times lower.
Yeah. What about you guys?
We try to be in that range.
Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks.
First half of the year, it's a little tough. We were away a lot, so we're trying to get back into that 4 to 6 week range again.
Yeah.
We wanted to be sooner, but things happen.
But Rylan's been pretty good so far. I mean, Rylan's only done a couple of engagement sessions, maybe about a half a dozen to a dozen, something like that.
Quite at like a full busy season yet.
Mhm.
So yep.
Oh, just you wait.
You get there.
Good luck, Ryan.
You get there. And there's good news. Ben's gonna be switching to Nikon. So
that is gonna be easier.
yeah, so his colors will look nicer. His colors will be more accurate now.
You peel off Rose face. It's Esteban. Hello, surprise!
That's racist.
Well, Rylan, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and
So I'm Rylan. I use pronouns he, him, or they, them. I'm an openly queer and trans photographer and educator, but this is my last week in public education. So that's going to be,
congrats.
it's going to be an interesting switch. 12 years in education. So I actually was in education while I was transitioning. So I had been in the same district for 9 or 10 years before transitioning. And I also teach middle school choir. So I was going through puberty at the same time as like the kids that I was teaching. So those changes were interesting to go through, and it made me a little bit more empathetic. So I've been doing weddings for probably about 2 years, but I photographed a decent amount like when I would travel with my wife. We did a lot of dog training. We did some dog events and things like that. And I stayed friends with my wedding photographer and started going to weddings and really enjoyed everything about that. So
Who was your wedding photographer?
Arena Shostak.
Oh, I know
And-
Rena.
Yeah, and we worked with her through Inspire Me Imagery at the time.
Okay.
And I actually stayed friends with John and Lauren from Inspire Me Imagery. So I worked very closely with them. I did social media work with them, and I second for them a decent amount too.
Nice.
So I started off in the wedding industry with like really good, really strong mentors and friends.
That's awesome.
Okay, so you're leaving the education space to do this full time?
Yes.
Yep.
Why would you do such a thing?
I know everyone tells me how impossible it is. No. So honestly, it's a different stress, but it's definitely less emotionally taxing on me mentally. There's a lot of physical running around. There's a lot involved, but it's just different. It's different being responsible for just myself instead of 700 people. I really enjoy it. There's ways for me to still educate. There's ways for me to advocate, and I'm documenting a lot of really important things. So it feels like I'm still able to give back to people and help people, just in a different way.
Is it scary?
It's very scary. It was scary for me to come to that conclusion, and then telling my wife. So it's been a lot of change with my wife. Like we got married when we were both women, so it was like a year or two later I started my transition, and then it was like sticking in teaching, so like some stability, and then it's like just kidding, we're gonna do another transition. But I've been doing like a lot of business coaching. I now edit for Ben and Karis, so it kind of fills in some other gaps.
I feel like that leap can be scary, but it's better than wondering what would have happened if you had done it.
Yeah.
Now that you're doing it, give it a try. And we always say the worst that could happen is you have to go back to what you did before.
Yeah.
And that's not the worst thing. It just
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the worst
Really
thing,
not,
but
yep.
like if you have to go back, you go back. But
Yeah,
at least
yeah.
you can say you've gave it a shot and you're moving forward.
Yeah,
Right,
for sure.
that pressure kind of helps you hustle, to make sure that there's basically like no room to fail.
Yeah.
So that pressure is helpful in hustling.
And I've definitely been hustling leading up to this. Like I knew this year was likely going to be my last year. So like this year is when I built in all of the hustle.
Yeah.
So that like I wasn't starting from like scratch or a deficit. So it was kind of like leading up to how can I get the most experience? How can I get the most knowledge? Worked with the business coach. So it was like I would be driving home from school on a on a business coaching call. And then like
That's
go
awesome.
home and like edit, or like go right to Ben's house and edit. So
Which is not so bad.
no, and they feed me too sometimes, you know?
There you go.
Even though you put too much salt in the pork.
Oh.
But it's okay.
Yeah, there's one time I had tried a new
Pork
recipe.
chop, pork chop.
Yeah.
I was doing my new diet and everything, and I was trying new recipes, and
Lemongrass pork chop.
it was way too salty. Yeah, it was way too salty. So someone who is publicly queer and you're working in this space, right? I guess the question is, how do you promote yourself? Are queer couples intentionally coming to find you? They're looking for you, they're finding you. Are you intentionally marketing to them, or they're just coming to you organically? Are you shooting a lot of non-queer weddings? I guess my question is like, what's your marketing plan look like?
So it gets kind of interesting because I'm in that weird world of like switching over from, you know, like strictly second shooting or assisting people into my own brand. So
Mhm.
like I'm working on my brand. So like personally, my brand, I definitely put out there about affirming and celebrating people, which doesn't have to be just queer people.
Mhm.
So like me personally, I put a lot of celebrating, affirming, and also like non-traditional kinds of things. So like you don't want to go to the church, we don't have to go to the church. Like I prefer not to go to the church, but I mean,
Well, that's a whole other podcast.
like, you know, you want to have like a theater production as your wedding. I am all for it. Like anything that's just not the same is
Mhm.
kind of like what I focus on, but especially about creating that space for anyone who is queer or LGBTQ somewhere in the spectrum, that they wouldn't have to question kind of where I lie. But the interesting thing is, especially with like word of mouth and referrals, is like I photograph a lot of straight and South Asian weddings.
Interesting.
So it's very, I'm in like a very interesting spot right now. So like I have more on the books for later this year and then like next year as more like LGBTQ couples.
Mhm.
But right now it's like a very big, like I have a lot of straight couples that are just
Mhm.
coming into me.
That's awesome. Do you
Yeah.
feel like that more couples that are queer gravitate towards photographers and vendors that are within that space?
So I feel like it's very split. Like there's people who are LGBTQ and very advocate and policy involved that will definitely gravitate more towards those people who are also in those same spaces.
Mhm.
But there are also people who are like, this is not my identity and I just want to be a human, and they just will go for kind of like, you know, whoever. Because there are people who are just fine with like, yeah, that you're just another human.
Right.
So for some people, like it's not as important, but for some people, like I have a few that are like, we want as many queer vendors
Mhm.
as possible. And then like I also have on my list other either they're owned or operated by people of color or queer people that like when I give out my vendor rec list, they have all of that available. Like there's people that are just affirming or they're strong allies, but I also mark which ones are people of color or queer affirming as well.
Yeah, I think we see this a lot in other minority groups as well.
Yep.
I
You
think
know?
it's very important to like distinguish that for people, because I think people who are not part of the community feel that they have to shout from the rooftops, you know, I support this community, I have to do this. Just recognize them as humans. Say like
Yeah.
I love what you said about affirming. I'm affirming queer couples. I'm affirming whatever kind of love that you have or whatever you're doing for your wedding, like something out of the norm. I don't want to go to a church, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Your goal as a photographer is just to photograph love
Mhm.
and not feel like you have to shout from the rooftops, like, oh, I'm doing this. Just treat people as people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you kind of gravitate towards those people who want to hire you as a photographer.
I've been in like other lives that I have kind of watched because they were talking about queer couples specifically, and I wanted to make sure that no misinformation was being given. And that's how I met another queer photographer across the country too. Someone was like, "But how do I know who is like the more masculine one?" Or they said who's the more, I don't remember. It was a very like negative word of basically being like very masculine and like aggressive, and it was like, but there are plenty of people that like there's feminine guys and there's masculine girls that don't identify as trans. So it's just kind of like, it would be really weird if you had a couple that like they're not super girly and princessy and you're like, let's twirl your gown and let's spin you around, and they're like, but
Yeah.
that's not. So like I know like I come from like in a way a privileged background because like I'm surrounded by this and like I know you can't assume things, and it's kind of just like just literally treat people like people. But I think so many people are still stuck on like, the binary stereotypes of
Yes.
what that then means.
I mean, we all grew up with putting people in boxes and
Yeah.
the norms of what people should be like, and it's hard for people to break out of that.
Mhm.
I mean, like for us, I know when we were started photographing our first same-sex weddings, we did fall into that trap of, like you mentioned, who do we treat more of, like what would be a groom or who would be the bride? And it's like, you just show up and the chips fall where they go. Like you
Yeah.
kind of see who's the more affectionate person, who
Yeah.
loves to hold, who loves to kiss, or maybe they're not that affectionate.
Mhm.
Just treat them like you would a same-sex couple. Just see how they are together and photograph it that way, and not say I have to put these people in a box, because that's what wedding photography is with a bride and groom. So it has to be that way across the board.
I think that's one of the things that brings people towards me is like they don't see people in the same poses all the time. So it's really just more about like how do they connect? Like I know a lot of people too, they're like, well, I'm really awkward and like I need you to direct me, but I also don't like superpose. And it's like it's like a mix of editorial and photojournalism in a way. And that helps people relax to kind of get their personality across.
What's your process like to figure out how to best photograph them that represents who they are as people?
I mean, one of the first things we do like on a discovery call is I do ask them about them, like what they enjoy, how did they start dating. And I've kind of been surprised because like me personally, as a neurodivergent person, I'm like, that's too broad of a question. Like, what do you want to know? But like people give me an entire spiel about like exactly how they met, who was around there, what they were wearing. So like you kind of get this whole full story of like just kind of how they operate together. And then when we're in person, it just, you can see if people were speaking more or less about like what they actually do. Because, you know, people think they are perceived one way and then they're not actually perceived that way. And then kind of just take it from there. I might ask for a few typical poses and see kind of who jumps in first or interacts first. I do a lot where like even the cisgender heterosexual couples, I'm like, you spin her and then it's like, okay, you can get a turn too. Like if you want to turn. And like one of my favorite photos is of this cishet couple and like the guy is being dipped. And it's like one of the favorites actually. The company, I was working through another company at the time and the company didn't deliver that photo to the couple. And they reached back out to me and they were like, that was our favorite photo. Do you have that photo? They didn't give it to us. So I guess the company was like, well, that's not like what you're supposed to be doing.
Oh.
And so they literally said that was their favorite of the
God.
entire session.
Yeah.
Wow.
If someone didn't deliver that photo of Ro twirling me in front of
Oh
the
yeah.
I would be so angry.
It's a video.
It's even better.
I was go.
So I think, like, to your point, have you come across more instances of that where like people maybe not in a direct way were discriminating towards certain clientele, or just like having that like pulling certain images or saying things have to be done a certain way?
Yeah,
But what I was trying to get at was, what issues have you seen queer couples face in the wedding industry as they're either planning their wedding or, let's say, someone working in the industry?
So there's actually still venues that will refuse to serve LGBTQ couples in New Jersey. I did a styled shoot last year, probably about this time last year, with Arena. She reached out to me because she's like, hey, I know you're still getting started. And we work really well together. We're friends and everything. And it was specifically an LGBTQ session. So the modeling company that was sending models out, once they found out that it was going to be LGBTQ centered, people backed out. When the coordinator was going to the original venue, and she explained like she was going on the tour of the place, she explained what it was going to be, and they were like, oh no. So I know they were surprised because that the people setting it up were all cisgendered. Most, if not all, were cis and heterosexual, maybe somewhere on the spectrum. But so they were very surprised that was still happening because New Jersey is one of the most protected states. But
Right.
So I run a gay straight alliance in my school as well. So like I kind of have to bridge the gap of like real life and like what might be considered like political. So yes, in New Jersey, we are very protected, but also like laws exist that people break all the time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
I didn't think you could do that. You guys are protected. So like
we are,
Well, did
but
they
it
straight
doesn't
up
stop
say-
people from
Yeah,
committing
they
crimes.
will.
Did they straight up say that was the reason, or because I'm sure they probably like
I think they got like really weirded out and then ghosted her.
ghosted? That's what I figured. It's like they can't outright
They would, of
say we're
course.
not
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
this
Are
because
you
of
allowed to
this.
tell me what county this was in?
It was somewhere South Jersey.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
which county it was
Yeah.
in specifically. I mean, I got married in 2019, and even then, like I had to cross out all of these sections on the forms that all said bride and groom, and it was just like,
Yes.
y'all still haven't updated this? Like, it was like by then Obergefell and Hedges had been decided in what, like 2016 or 2018, I can't remember. And it was like they were just like, oh yeah, just cross that out. Like, I was like, wait,
Yeah, our contract
Yeah,
says to say the
that's
couple.
Yeah.
yeah,
Say
which
just a
makes
couple. Yep,
total
yep.
sense. It was just like I was still sitting there, like they're like, yeah, just cross it out, and I
Yeah.
was like,
Okay.
that's cool.
So that's
I
good to know
guess.
you've been on both sides of the spectrum here, planning your own wedding
Yeah.
and being a wedding vendor.
Yeah.
So you've kind of, I guess, seen it all. How was planning your own wedding?
So I would probably see it through a different lens now as a trans person, but it was still kind of like we were like, we know that we're protected, but also like who's going to treat us well and not just be like either we were going to be like their token gay couple or they would feel like awkward around us because some people are like, I don't want to offend you. So then they start acting really weird and you're like, that's not how you're not going to offend me. Like, is this okay? Is that okay? Is this okay? And it's like,
It's not okay.
so like, you don't need to walk on eggshells. Like, so I like to tell people, especially like, people can tell when you're being genuine and not being genuine.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know it's hard to be like,
Body language too.
yeah. So it's hard to like give like a definite like, I know that person's not being offensive. Like, how can I tell? And it's like, you can just tell. Like,
Yeah.
there's, it's hard to describe to people, but yeah, we definitely didn't want someone who was going to be kind of like awkward. I know, especially like when I was going on my honeymoon, like we went over to Europe and we were staying in people's houses. So I had messaged and I was like, are you cool with gay couples? Because like, I don't want to go somewhere and then like put myself in danger. So, I mean, I know that's not, it's somewhat related to the wedding industry. Like we would look up like where should we not travel? Where should we travel? Which right now, Human Rights Campaign just a week ago issued a national state of emergency for LGBTQ couples.
Really?
Yeah, and
In
they've
the
actually
US?
for all of the United States, we're in a national state of emergency for LGBTQ people
Coming into the States?
everywhere in the United States.
Oh.
Florida is actually
Oh, well, that
HRC has issued them as a do not travel.
Red state.
They
red
said do
alert.
not travel to Florida as a
Really?
queer couple. Yeah.
Wow.
I could see that.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
yes.
But even like you telling us that stuff happening in New Jersey, and this is as recent as
Yeah.
it is, I'm very surprised and very shocked.
Actually, right now there's I follow this one Instagram account that I just came across because I'm actually a sponsor for a few Pride events in like different, like I just did Princeton, and I this is my second year doing Haddon Township Pride, so I kind of like to get involved in that advocacy work, and I came across this page called Say Gay, and there are currently this month alone 4 school districts that are trying to backpedal on protections for LGBTQ students. So they're trying to kind of work those out about like what the law says you can do and then what they want their policy to be able to allow them to do, which one of them would be forced outing of a student if they were to come out and be
Yeah.
like, these are my pronouns or this is my name, but don't tell my parents. It doesn't happen as often and we are protected, but then again, it's people choose to commit crimes all the time.
Mhm.
So I think there's 8 states that are listed as like the safest states in the United States right now.
New Jersey's the one you said?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like 8 to 10 or something like that. It's pretty wild.
Wow.
Wow.
I guess as a nation, we're backpedaling
Yes.
Bizarre, yeah.
way.
Way.
bit. Yeah.
Like we're in the
Yep.
1900s.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, I personally haven't had like a ton of instances of people harassing me. I mean, I have had some. I mean, it still happens. Just because
Yeah.
it didn't happen to me, it doesn't mean that it didn't
Yep.
happen to somebody else.
Just like racism still
Yes.
happens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, racism's illegal, but it still happens.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Of course. It's,
And then there's
yeah.
always the
Until-
microaggressions where it's like it's not
Uh-huh.
technically, but it's still
Yep.
not right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And also the consequences are
Mm,
not enforced or
Yeah.
there's nothing. So
yeah.
It's one of those enforceable laws. Like you can't get away with things like murder, like physical crime, but other things that like when you are discriminating against other people, it's like a crime, but like
Yeah.
no one really
Who's gonna?
enforces it.
Yep.
There's also a lot of like, what are you going to use to prove it? Like
Right.
if it all
Mhm.
happens like just in a conversation, not on
right,
a podcast
Right. Uh-huh.
where
Yeah.
it's submitted somewhere. So
Mhm.
All 50 of our listeners are listening.
shout out to our 50 listeners.
What's that?
I said shout out to all our 50 listeners.
So what else do you think could have gone better for you guys as you were wedding planning, or things that you should see change within the wedding industry?
So I feel like we actually did fairly well. So like I said, Inspire Me Imagery did a great job. Their whole thing is like non-traditional weddings. They call themselves the alternative wedding photographers.
Mhm.
And then like our venue was pretty good, other than like we just had to cross out bride and groom. Our DJ, any of the changes that we made, like we did not say the new Mrs. and Mrs. We didn't say like, we just said like the Earle-Lotts. Like, so that's all we really did. So like, I mean, they were great. They didn't have any slip ups or anything like that. But I think at the time, like it was really hard for us to be like, what are alternatives that we could do? Which now there are a lot more people coming out and saying publicly like, here's a term you could use, here's this that you could do, here's that you could do. So like, I feel like we're on the right track, and I kind of get blindsided because that's my community. I'm surrounded by it. I see it all the time. So I'm like, people already know all this stuff. They don't need to like I was talking to Ben the other day. I was like, people know this. You all know all these things, right? And he's like, no. And I was like,
No, we don't.
like, I thought it was like common knowledge,
Yeah.
but it's becoming easier to find it. I think in that aspect, we're at least on the right track. There's just some things that are kind of like people genuinely don't think sometimes. So while you're in that mindset of like, I want to see how the couple interacts, like who's more touchy and who's less touchy, like I don't think everyone thinks that through, and they're like, no, the guy should be holding them.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like just kind of going with the human aspect is kind of where it's at.
Yeah, I feel like when in doubt, go that route. Ooh.
Yeah, rhyme.
But because especially a lot of the old school, like older generation now runs like venues, or
Yeah.
they've been around doing weddings for years, and they're taking a longer time to adapt
Yeah.
to the changes of the world. So just like I said, just wrap around that mindset of they're human, treat them as such, and move on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of in the industry too. There's a lot of, at least in WPPI, I'm seeing like more master classes on like trying to educate. I see it in the Facebook groups too. They're always asking, how do I pose, right? And from our experience, you just approach it just like any other wedding day. But it's that mental block of you overthinking it and stuff. But our industry now is doing, I feel they're doing a better job at trying to educate everyone.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to change things, adapt things, like the questionnaires.
Yeah.
Do you know where else we can learn about how to educate folks on how to serve the queer community a little better?
Tell us.
You
Please
tell us
tell
Ben,
us.
now.
The Focused AF Summit.
Yes.
Which Rylan will be teaching at?
Oh, I am. I'm doing that.
So Rylan is going to be sharing the stage with a whole bunch of us. Rylan, tell us what you're going to be teaching us about.
So specifically, marketing to LGBTQ clients, but also how to like actually follow through on them. This was actually in our first conversation that we sat down for this like low key interview at a pastry shop, and I was like, "How deep do you want me to go?"
That's what she said.
Oh, Lord.
Let it be
Were
known,
the
if my wife
pastries-
listens to this, I was not the one who made that joke this time. Okay.
Were the pastries at least good? You know,
Oh yeah, it's good.
I think we only
Okay.
had coffee. Did we eat?
You guys
No.
had, I think you brought home
I
pastries.
think I bought pastries to bring home, but yeah, I didn't share.
All right, so how deep did you go?
So
How deep?
I was watching
Oh my God,
a
loving it.
live of a not named company.
Love
And-
photography?
No. And they were bringing someone on that was talking about how to inclusify your business, but it struck me from a standpoint of like, how can I make money off of them? Instead of like, and I know that wasn't the intent. Like after I watched it, that was not the intent, but the way that it was worded seemed like that. And it seemed like a lot of people were attending for a very similar reason. So my thing is like, I want you to be able to be inclusive, but I want you to do it because you genuinely want to help somebody, not because it's like, I need to market to this population. It can be very, very harmful if you have all of that marketing and then you get to work with that couple and you have no idea how to work with that couple. And I feel like we face that a lot where people are like, it's kind of like I'm not racist, but, or like,
I have black friends.
I got one black friend.
not to be mean,
I'm not racist.
but then it's like, no, if you're going to use a qualifier, like
Yeah.
you probably shouldn't do that. Yeah, it's kind of like about how you follow through. And I mean, I couldn't hide my transition, so I'm fairly open about most things in my transition. So if people want to ask me questions, I might laugh, but I'm like not laughing at the person. It's just kind of like, I know how awkward it can be to ask those questions, but I'm willing to answer them. And I will ask like, what answer do you want? Like, I have a shorter answer or I have like an actual in-depth answer.
No, but the in-depth answer would be great. I think it's definitely helpful
sure.
for people to learn as much as possible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And from different types of people.
And they can get that at the summit.
Yeah.
because I'm gonna give the full
Yes.
answer
Whoa,
at the
he's
summit.
good. You're promoting your
Let me- let me
summit.
I
get
can't give away everything for free.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
I'm
selling
like-
better than you.
I've been busy, you know? I've been busy. I'll work on it. They're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And I think the point you were trying to make was, you need to genuinely, sincerely want to serve that community.
Yeah.
So I guess the
Yes.
question was like, is that your presentation? Is that what we're going to be? How do we serve that community better? How can we do better
Yeah.
to serve that community?
Yeah, I definitely give some kind of like, I guess it's like boring background knowledge, but like kind of like some of the terms that are being
It
used.
might,
So
it
you're
might be
not
boring to you, but it's all new information for
Yeah.
us.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I know some people don't like definitions, but it's like you kind of need definitions to kind
Yeah.
of like, you know.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So like, I like to go over some of the terms that are used. So like when someone says something, you're not kind of just like lost. And I know some people don't like labels, but I like them in a personal way. So like, I don't need for all of you to know like the labels that I hold about myself, but when I use them to talk to another person, it kind of helps like some of my experiences. So like when I've met other people online that are also non-binary trans-masc, I'm like, I know what experiences you've had are similar to mine, so like we're gonna connect that way. But someone else that like when I approach most people, I'm just gonna say like they or he is my pronouns, and I'm not gonna go into very much. Or I might say for simplicity that I'm a trans guy, but that's not how I view myself. My labels would actually be non-binary transmasculine, because I don't see myself as fitting in between. Like I don't fit as a woman, but I don't feel like a man either. So it's like that very complicated kind of existence that most people would be like, I don't know, whatever that means. So kind of going over what some of those labels and terms kind of mean for people. And it doesn't mean that you have to understand them yourselves, just kind of like what goes with it.
Yeah, you just have to acknowledge it, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's important to try to understand, right? But I think it's even more important to acknowledge it,
Yes.
you know?
It's not for you to understand firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what
Yeah,
people all the time.
validate. I
Yeah.
guess validate in some
Yeah.
way.
Mhm.
Validate it in your terms.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's important for us heteros cisgender to be like, okay, I acknowledge your pronouns. I will never understand it because I'm not in that world,
Right,
but
right, of course.
respect the person, respect how they want to be called and how they want to be acknowledged,
That's
and
it.
just move on.
I think
Yep,
that's true
that's it.
for how you treat any
Anyone, yep,
minority group,
anyone, yep.
especially.
Anyone
Like
with a, yep.
your experiences are valid, and my experiences are valid. Even one does not negate the other. They
other.
can
Yes.
both coexist.
That's the biggest problem. Everyone wants to negate the other's experience every time
there's
across
this-
the board
Yes.
on everything.
Yeah, you
Like,
can't
Yes.
invalidate
oh, but
somebody-
me, or but what about
Right.
this person? Just acknowledge what they're trying to
We
express.
all
and
There's
say.
there's space for every
Everyone.
Yeah.
person,
Yep.
Mhm.
regardless of experience.
Mhm.
Like you said, it doesn't negate somebody else's experience
Yep.
or existence.
Right.
Even like people who are like trans people haven't like I'm here. So I mean, like I mean, if you're seeing me, I
Right.
exist. So
Yep.
You could be an illusion. I've had a lot of drinks.
Too many drinks. Rylan's not here. Rylan is not here. So, what advice would you give photographers who want to work with the queer community? How can they get into that space? Because I think back to what you mentioned before, same-sex marriage was only legalized, like 7 years ago now? Right?
Yeah.
2015 or so? And it's been hard for some of us to kind of get into that space in a genuine way. There are
Right,
people,
yeah.
like you mentioned, that want to make money. There was always, like, I remember when, not soon after it was legalized, a lot of vendors would say, oh, it's new for them. They're going to want to spend money.
Yeah.
They're going to spend a lot with us.
Oh my gosh.
We got to, get them. But what advice would you give people who genuinely want to serve that community? How can they break into that circle and start serving them?
So, I mean, that's kind of like a two-part question, because one of the things that you said is like when the venues and things like other vendors were like, they're gonna, bring us money because it's new for them. Like, I think it's really important to acknowledge that much like other minority groups, usually there's less access to money for those groups.
Mm-hmm.
So, historically speaking, especially trans people, they have less access to money, less access to safety than a cisgendered heterosexual person would have. So the other thing also is like, I would do your research, first of all, about like the community in general. So like, what are some of the terms that I should know? What are some of the hardships that I should know? I don't necessarily like calling them pain points, but like, what's it important to know that like they're struggling with? And then also find ways of how you can celebrate them. Because especially right now, over 500 anti-LGBTQ laws have been introduced across the country. It's like we don't have enough joy in our life. Like our news is constantly like, here's another way that someone's trying to invalidate you. Here's another way that they're trying to lessen your access to health care. So it's like, what are the things that we can do to help them feel seen, heard, affirmed, loved? What makes them feel good for any amount of time that we're in contact with them? And if that means like you are going down a TikTok rabbit hole or a YouTube rabbit hole, whatever it is that you need, or if you have somebody like I would say similar to me where like I'm open. Like if you're gonna ask me a question, I'll respond. If it's an inappropriate question, I'll let you know it's an inappropriate question. Take them out to lunch, take them out to coffee, or if you want to add it to your portfolio, you can pay those people, or you can offer that like what's it like for a trade for print or something like that. So like offer something that it's not just taking from the community, you're giving back something to the community as well. So like I personally I started I want to run queer joy sessions. So anything that kind of celebrates anything along your journey. So I did one for someone who had top surgery, but that I photographed at a Haddon Township Pride Parade. So then they kept in contact with me and we did a photo session somewhere kind of like secluded, showed off like their top surgery scars, but in a place where they felt comfortable and affirmed and stuff like that, kind of like looking at their new body. So it's like literally anything can be a celebration. Just being seen and someone like using their name and using their pronouns is a celebration for some people.
Yeah, and I think photographers shouldn't be afraid to do, like you said, free sessions or
some type of outreach.
Some type of outreach. Like, I want to celebrate you. Let's take some photos of you guys. And I feel like even on just this month, I think, and there's like a whole other type of conversation.
If you want,
on
rainbow washing is what it's called.
What is it called?
It's called rainbow washing.
Yeah.
rainbow washing.
So rainbow washing is in June, like how all the companies change all of their stuff and they're like, look how much we love the gay community. But then even Target, they had backlash because there was like mildly tucking and mildly binding items. And people, of course, took them from the adult section and put them in the kids section. And they were like, look, they're trying to like do this. So rainbow washing is kind of just like, that's not actually part of your core values, but in June it's part of your core value. So like, like all of a sudden in June, you're like, that's the only time you're displaying your gay couples. It's like, why is that? You can display them when they got married. Or like
I think
you
some
did their
other
engagement
companies got
session.
in trouble, not just in the queer community, but also other minority communities.
Sure.
Oh, that's for every
So,
other month. For Black History Month. For
January,
Yeah,
February,
every
Hispanic
month,
Heritage Month.
Asian
every
American
month.
History
and
Month.
May.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm grateful to get a month, but it's more than what we got before. But still,
So
why
it's kind
can't we
of this-
celebrate them every day? That's the
Yes.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Just be normal, be you, and then
Acknowledge them
Yeah,
throughout the
acknowledge-
year.
yeah, and
Respect them throughout the year.
just we're all people.
People can see right through it when
Yeah.
you're being insincere.
it's
You're just
very-
doing it.
Yes.
Oh
so
yeah,
that
I mean
you're-
after like the
You-
first few years of like that happening, then you're
You're
like, okay,
You're just doing
this
it
is
so
a
you don't
little
get
weird now.
canceled. That's all.
Everyone's doing it.
And I really liked how you put it. Like you had said, people get so blocked in their head about it. Like they overthink it so much. And it's like, you just care about someone as a human. Like,
Right.
how would you treat them with decency? It's
Right.
just that with this, there's a little bit of extra nuance where it's like, like the first few times that I heard somebody call me by my chosen name, like it was like the world kind of like stopped. That it like came out of someone else's mouth so freely. Or like, I know a few vendors get really proficient at interchanging pronouns. This is like advanced level, but like there's other queer photographers that, like the parents refuse to use certain pronouns. So they're really good at kind of code switching. So they'll use these pronouns here and these pronouns there, or they'll make sure like they are overly enthusiastic about using the correct pronouns because families won't use the correct pronouns. So there's the photographers that are like, I'm willing to be the bad guy. Like, this is your day. So I'm going to do whatever is going to make you the happiest. So it's kind of like going out of your way to make sure like it's partly your job to make sure that day runs smoothly and that they feel good about that day. So if you need to take on the role as bad guy, so be it.
I think a lot of being in your head is tied into cancel culture and like I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Wrong things.
Or gotta be cautious. But I think back to everyone's point is just treat everybody the same, and you won't have that.
You won't have
fear.
that problem.
You won't
Yeah.
have that problem.
Yeah, and even if
And
you mess up, people know that your heart's in the
Yes.
right
If it's
place.
yep, if it's
Mhm.
purposeful or not.
yeah, I mean, there's like, of course, you have to be good at reading body language, but like we know. So that I've had people apologize profusely, and they're like, "Don't get mad at me." I'm like, I'm laughing because like it's like I know that you were like it was just a slip up, and
Uh-uh.
it's funny that you slipped after. My wife
Mhm.
said she the other day, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, you like in the beginning you didn't make a mistake, and like randomly right now, like, and I just laugh, and she's like, "I'm so sorry." I was like, "I really don't care. Like it's kind of funny."
I think that's what it is. Like a lot of people are not as sensitive as you think they are, but the
Yeah.
culture has you thinking, "Oh my
Yes.
God, I'm gonna offend everybody."
Yeah, everyone.
But
Yeah.
you're not.
Yep. Every other word. Yep.
I think
Very,
if your
very
heart's in the right
cautious.
place, I think
Mhm.
everyone knows
Yeah.
Yes.
your heart's in the right place. Or what's the quality of education when it comes to educating folks on how to serve the queer community
Yeah.
better?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like right now people are just finding random pockets. So like there are really good people out there, but it's like you either stumble across them or you have to like really research into them. So like my business coach specifically like is a really well-known advocate and educator, but it's like I randomly came across them. Like they live down in New Orleans. I mean they are
Mhm.
moving to Philly, but I stumbled across them the same way that I stumbled across somebody else. Like I think I was in a speakeasy group and an LGBTQ topic came up, and this person was like, as a trans photographer, and I was like, "Oh, another one? I'm not the only one. Okay, cool." And we kind of like connected that way. But it's like, before you met me, like, how many other queer educators or photographers had you come
Queer
across?
educators? I mean, I know I have a lot of queer friends. I have a queer educators. Like I'm
I knew planners
To be-
like
to be-
Jose Rolon and
even this past weekend was a queer planner, but like I've always been been an ally, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was intentionally seeking them out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But if we're gonna call a spade, I've only been teaching. I've been an educator for maybe about 2, 3 years. Well, 2 years.
Or advocate. How many like queer advocates in the industry have you kind of come across?
From my
Mm.
experience, I don't know why it's been planners. Like I've never seen like a lot of photographers, videographers. It's always like planners that I've seen are the ones that are educating everyone. I have no idea how that like came about or why that specific demographic is like are the only ones that I've seen.
It might be that they're specifically very outgoing, like they're always in charge of people throughout an entire day. Usually within the queer community, and this goes for kind of any minority group, is like a lot of people don't want to be the token person or they don't want to do more free labor. But there also comes a point where like, so first of all, through my transition, like I learned so much and I became such a more empathetic person. And I feel like I gained knowledge that I never would have had to seek out. And at first, I was like, I'm just going to keep this to myself. Like, I'm just going to try to be stealth, which is just kind of like fly under the radar. I'll pass as a regular white guy. And I was like, that's not what I want. Like, and I also don't want to hide who I am, which caused a lot of turmoil when I was at the beginning of my transition. I was like, I don't want to hide who I am. I also don't want to work for somebody that I might then potentially put myself in danger.
right.
So it kind of just happened that I was like, you know what, I'm just going to put this all out there so that if someone wants to hire me as a second, they know, so that if they have anything against the LGBTQ community, then they just won't hire me. Or like there's people that'll look out for me that they're like, I have a second, but this is a situation that you may or may not be safe in. I'm just giving you a heads up. So I know a lot of people kind of just, if they transition, they're like, I just want to pass and I just want it all behind me. And they don't really want to put it out there. So I think that kind of holds them back also from advocating. Like they're allies and everything and they're part of the community, but they don't want to put themselves
Out there.
So, and not everyone's like an educator by nature. Not everyone likes to share. And I'm, as someone with ADHD, I'm a natural oversharer.
So are you talking about members of the community who are also educators, or are you just talking about just random educators who are just allies?
I mean, like how he was saying how it's mostly like wedding planners. Like I know that there's other photographers that they prefer to stay under the radar. And I'm sure it's the same for videographers and things like that. They just, like you won't find mention of that on their websites really, other than like we're inclusive, we're welcoming, we're like,
because I've worked with a lot of queer vendors.
And it's not everything of my identity, but it is a large part of my identity, and it's something that I kind of want to be upfront about. Well, first of all, my jokes, a lot of it comes from that.
You got some dad jokes for me?
I mean, I have dad jokes.
Don't get him started.
I want to hear some of these dad jokes because.
Well, I mean, mean, there's even just like simple ones. Like I've been with a bride and like she's like frustrated with her dress, and I'm like this was when I was like second shooting, where like no one knows who I am until I show up, and like I wanted to be like, oh my god, I hated walking in heels, and they'd be like, I hated pulling that like chiffon like third layer, like the initial layer of the dress down, and they'd be like, how do you even what? Like so it's, or like the dad coming up to me in the bridal suite like, oh, this is a great place to meet chicks, huh? And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go with that, even though everyone in this room is married or engaged.
Or you're related to them.
Have them were his daughters.
Oh my god.
Hilarious. Seriously.
But like you said, it's something that you took on to own in a public facing way, and some people want to keep it more private, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
I think as an educator and an advocate, this kind of just
But back to what Rylan said, that's just part of it's part of his identity, but that's not
Everything.
not everything about
I
it.
wish there were more educators, though, especially in the photo world. Like, there's plenty of allies that'll shout it from the rooftop and will speak for a community that they are being an ally of, but cannot speak completely for.
Because they're not a part of that community.
Because you're not a part of that community. So I sure you appreciate them speaking out for you, but still there's layers of them not understanding certain things, so they can misspeak or misrepresent.
They probably also get more offended than they should most of the time. They're outraged.
It's like we're not as angry as you are. Maybe you need to chill out.
Yeah.
We're not offended. Why are you offended?
Or it's just, it then like it's kind of like if you're shouting it so loud, why are you shouting it so loudly? Like it's important to be like it's a very fine line. It's not black and white at all. It's kind of like, and like what would upset me isn't necessarily something that would upset somebody else. Like I take a lot more things probably in stride than other people would, but then there's people that are a lot more lenient than I would be as well. So it's like I can't speak for the whole community.
Right.
But it's kind of like, that's kind of why some people some LGBTQ couples tend to want to go towards queer vendors, is like they want to give the money back within their community. Yeah.
I mean, as a member of a minority community ourselves, we get clients like that too. They just want to, they like our work, but they're not hiring just because we're Asian American. It's a part of the puzzle, but it's not the whole puzzle. They enjoy what we do. So just like you, they hire you because you do great work. The fact that you're also queer like them, I'm sure it doesn't hurt you, right?
Yeah.
But they really like you because they like you as a human being. They like you for your work. They like how comfortable you make them feel.
And they want to support you too.
And then the fact
it's just the cherry on top that they get
it comes
to.
on as
exactly.
bonus. Yep.
It's the same reason why we're staying with our album company too. They do great work,
Exactly.
and it's a mom and pop shop. The cherry on top is that they're part of the Asian American community. We want to support them as well. All those pieces just come together, and it just makes sense for us to support them and continue to work with them.
Why not?
So is there anything else that we should know, or anything that you definitely want to convey? This is your time to, if it's a 20-minute spiel, knock yourself out. Go as deep as you want.
I mean,
I don't want you to walk away from here feeling like, oh, I should have said this. I should have said that.
I mean, I'll do that anyway.
Save it for the summit.
Now you're chiming in. So I think it's more important, kind of like, instead of talking a big game, like showing your big game. So like, instead of writing all over the place that you are LGBTQ inclusive or you're okay with same-sex weddings, like show that in your portfolio. Like the same way that we're like, a lot of people will only show skinny white brides. Like
Barbie types.
yeah. So it's like, if you genuinely want to attract those types of people, show that in your work and treat them like they look beautiful. They have their own aura around them. Like, it doesn't have to look like it's going to be in a magazine. I think part of the magic of photography is capturing the emotion. So it doesn't all have to be staged. You don't have to go do just styled shoots. Like, do something in a way that you're actually giving back, and it's not just a way that you're taking so that you can kind of like expand your business just for the sake of expanding business. I think it's just one of those things. It's like, yes, treat them as humans, but like, there's just a little bit of extra nuance added to it. There's a little bit of extra knowledge that you might kind of need. I don't know. Are there any questions, like random questions that you guys have?
That was not quite 20 minutes.
That was 3 minutes long.
Great.
I have a question actually. So you're gonna go full time soon.
Yeah.
All right. So what have been your struggles? And we would love to try to help you in any way.
Oh, Ben, your favorite SEO? Because like I don't have a lot of website traffic. Like I kind of get my name out there just in ways of like sponsorship and other things. So it's like I actually there's probably plenty of straight photographers that get more queer couples than I do.
I'm shooting one next weekend. Sorry.
I shot one last weekend. I shot one on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, with SEO, I mean, that's just part of the puzzle. Out of the free ways that you can market yourself, it's SEO, social media, and networking. On the SEO end of things, basically the thing you want to do is just continuously put out content. Ideally, you want it to be content that serves your audience in a meaningful way. It's okay if you are blogging your weddings or blogging your engagement sessions. But I think it's also important for you to blog maybe even evergreen pieces. Because the thing is, when you are putting out blog posts, right? You're blogging weddings and engagement sessions. Basically, you're telling the world, hey, look at me, look how awesome I am, right? You're not really serving them in any kind of meaningful way, aside from the fact that you're letting them know how awesome you are, what the amazing pictures that you're able to take for them. How you can serve them more effectively is like, figure out what kind of problems that they're struggling with. Whether it's their itinerary planning or they're struggling with how to do their portraits or how to pose for their session or timeline building or whatever it is, writing their speeches, whatever it is, some way that you're going to serve them without actually you selling yourself.
Yeah.
Right. I think the big struggle that many small businesses have, queer, straight, everything, right, is that when they're blogging, they're writing to serve themselves first. Look how awesome I am. Book me. I'm awesome. Right. But if you can kind of flip that script on its head, write to serve your audience instead. And instead of trying to write to game the algorithm, I think you're going to find more success serving your audience. What also happens then is when you're writing to serve your audience, that content now becomes shareable. It's something that you can repurpose, that you can share everywhere else. Okay, you can share it in your email marketing. You could share it on your social. Your wedding blog, you share it once. I think that's
Yeah.
it. It's got a shelf life.
That email marketing I need to get better at too.
Right. So
I started the email.
So if you need a coach. I know a great sales and marketing coach. I'll give you a good price.
But it all goes back to social too. I feel like the audience are changing a little bit. They're
Yeah.
not landing on your website first. They're landing on your Instagram first.
Correct.
Or
Yeah.
they're probably not going to sign up for your email list. So
Yeah.
it's like all in social and adapting to.
The analogy that I
That
make,
fun world.
the analogy that I make in my course. So you guys get a little sneak peek on my course, right? So the website that you have is basically your brick and mortar storefront.
Yeah.
All right. It's where the sale's going to happen. However,
You're showing them what you're selling.
right. However, that's just because you have a store in the middle of Main Street doesn't mean that you're going to get customers. Okay. You need to get customers to your store. And the vehicles by which you do that is through social media, networking, magazine features, ads, whatever it is. All right. Those are the traffic generators. Your blogs, your website is what's going to convert them to customers. But before you even get that far, you got to worry about it, your traffic problem. So that's where social media comes into play. Just generating
Full time
traffic.
job.
Yeah, it's a full-time job.
It's a lot of work that I don't do.
I
Yeah.
started getting better at that one.
Yeah. But with your website, you could kind of optimize it in such a way so that people can find you organically through search and things like that, right? But as you continue doing this for more and more years, right? The market continues to get more and more saturated. Okay. It's going to be harder and harder for you to rank for certain keywords. It's going to be harder for you to compete in the marketplace. It just has more and more competition every single day. Let me tell you something. When I first started in 2010, nobody had figured out SEO yet. All right. It was still kind of new-ish, kind of, right? And I figured out how to game the system, right? Learning how to do SEO properly. And if you were to Google like New York City hall weddings in 2011, I would dominate the first 3 pages. All those images were mine. Okay. Now, if you Google it, I'm still on the first page. I have like 1 image there, right? But
I noticed that because when we used to like search
What's the
keywords,
keyword?
we would always see Ben Lau. We're like,
What's the
who's this Ben
keyword?
Lau guy? All over the place.
Is that how
Now
you
we
friended
can
me?
barely find him. We're like,
Oh,
where's
this
Ben
fucking loser. Is he still relevant?
And it's like my socials, I focus a lot on the personal connection like that I put into each client. Like I like feeling like a friend
Yes.
with these people. Like I don't like a cold, like this was a business transaction. And that's a really big piece of mine is I then also tend to attract other people very similar to myself. Like, so if they're not somewhere on the queer spectrum, they're probably also neurodivergent in some way, shape or form, which is how we kind of like connect so well together.
Yeah. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make with their SEO is that they're keywording for region. And then for the, maybe about 8 years ago, they were keywording for the venues. That's not going to work anymore. You have to do things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to learn how to do it, you got to come to the summit or buy my course.
No more free info.
And I do have 2 evergreen pieces on my website kind of about things that I had done throughout my wedding to do things differently before there was very much information about that. A little bit serving vendors on like things that you could kind of take note of. So that way it's kind of serving 2 sets of people kind of with one.
Yeah. Have you
One kind of post.
Have you read any copywriting books or have you got any copywriting training?
No, not specifically.
Yeah, that might help.
Is that gonna be at the summit?
It's actually my course, but
Oh,
yeah,
look
for
at that.
copywriting, like how to write for your audience. It's actually what I studied in college.
Use
No.
Chat GPT. I'm joking.
I don't.
Use AI.
How dare you?
You can't copyright that.
How dare you?
I'm joking.
No.
Take note, Google will push you down.
No, I mean, like,
Ben only uses that for his dad jokes.
I mean, it's very useful, But one of the first things that I learned in college as an English major was, you got to understand who your audience is.
Yeah.
What their motivations are, and you're gonna produce something different each time based on your audience.
And I think you have like a niche perspective that you can write about more.
Yeah.
As being a queer photographer, you have a lot more advice and insight that you could blog about and then promote it across channels on like social media. I think people will love that content because we're not as knowledgeable in that space, so we can't write about it.
I had a conversation about communication, right? Effective communication with another photographer, a friend of ours. And the thing that we concluded on was, communication isn't so much about what you're saying or how clear you think you're saying it. It's about how it's received on the other end.
Yeah.
Right. So you always have to take that in consideration. Like, what is the experience on the other end?
Yeah.
Based
Doesn't
on-
matter the intent.
My impact is more important. I didn't mean to be racist, but well, you sounded pretty racist to me.
And it quacks like a duck. What do you say?
Right. Well,
I think that was your sales and marketing for the day, huh?
that was my whole segment. Oh
Yeah.
man.
So I think
Sales
one of the
and
cool
marketing.
things.
That was based off my question.
Yeah, that was good.
I
That
think
was
one of
20
the
minutes.
I
Go ahead, Rylan, sorry.
one of the really cool things about working with so I say LGBTQ and queer kind of interchangeably, but technically it would be LGBTQ because not everyone uses the word queer. But
LGBTQIA plus.
yeah, I use LGBTQ, but that would be like the full. Yeah,
Is there anything beyond plus? I think there are.
There are more. I
IA
think.
plus plus,
Oh
and
my
then there's
God.
probably some more.
There's more. I didn't know this.
So that's why queer is kind of used an umbrella term, but it is
Yeah.
important to understand like queer used to be a very, very offensive term.
Mhm.
It's just kind of like that they've
Owned
some
it.
people have
Taking
taken
some
it back.
ownership of it. Okay.
Mhm.
There are still people that are like, do not say that word for me.
Oh.
But so that's why like I'm kind of careful. Like I wouldn't just assume it's a queer wedding.
Mhm.
Kind of like running it by real quick. Like, hey, how do you feel about this word?
Love it. Okay.
But but working with the queer community is like, I know a lot of weddings are different. Like every wedding is going to be unique, but I feel like queer weddings just have so many unique things going on with them. Like, I mean, I have one that they're going to do. It's going to be a cabaret and open mic.
Love it.
And
Sounds
I'm
like
just
a
like,
Karis kind of wedding.
Love
and I'm like,
it.
why? Well, I think we've talked about that before. Is like,
Yeah.
why are people so intent on like doing like what they think is a wedding,
Right.
like what they think it
Yeah.
means to be a wedding? And it's like
Ditch it.
LGBTQ
Yeah.
people are just like,
Do
They're like,
you?
yeah, they're like, I've been stuffed in boxes my whole life.
Mhm.
Do whatever
So-
you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have a drag queen
Yes.
MC it.
Love
And I'm like,
it.
I'm here for
Like
this.
paint
Like,
your wedding. You know
I
what I
wanna
mean?
go to
Just
that
throw Eddie
wedding.
Collins in there.
Are you shooting this?
Do you need
Yeah.
to
Are
use
you-
that?
Are you inviting
actually,
me?
my business coach is my second.
Who is? Who is?
My business coach is actually my second for that
Oh.
wedding.
You need a third?
You need
some
assist.
BTS?
You need
My
you need
assistant.
assistant.
You know, a BTS would be kind of cool. But
And there's so much more fun for us as the photographers. Like you're breaking out of the norm. We're not doing the same
Yes.
thing over and over
Yes.
again. Like
Yeah.
we did a same sex couple last year. They were in theater. The
Yes.
dance
Yeah.
floor was incredible. There was like dance performances, and you're just like,
That wedding got us put on a preferred
yes,
vendor
preferred
list.
vendors list because they were so in love with the wedding and how it was a reflection of them
Yes.
and not like what you have to do on a wedding day.
There, like, I know that there are straight and like straight passing couples that do
Unique
like,
things.
Yep.
yeah, they think more about themselves, but it's like, I don't know, so many more people in the LGBTQ community are like, what do I want? I've been stuffed in this box. I want to celebrate whatever it is that we're celebrating. And like, I have one, so it's a straight passing couple because they're both bisexual, but they're like, we're bringing in these elements, and the groom's family is going to be completely surprised, and like it's just going to be and it's just like this is I'm here for it. Like it's going to be great. There's so many things that happen that like you can really genuinely celebrate it, and it's not just like, well, I'm here because like I went to school with them, and like I'm sorry, you know, all the typical speeches. I just think like this wedding that I did last weekend. Well, not it's only 3 days ago at this point, but you could tell how touched the one groom was, that he was like, I never felt like I deserved this type of love, and I didn't think there was a place for me. And he was just like, I guess one of their uncles is like a priest, and he said a prayer over everything, and it was like he was just so touched that people were so willing to be there and do all of this for them and just love them. And I think that's something that other people kind of take for granted, that like, you know, it's just like, well, they're family, they have to love me. And it's like, no, family can choose to leave you at any time, actually. So they get pretty emotional. They're very interesting. There's just so much to celebrate. And I feel like you might even feel this way being part of a minority group, is like, there's obstacles that you have to overcome that like people don't even think about in our life. So it's just, I don't know, it just makes it a lot more special.
Oh, 100%. Like you mentioned, people feel like they have to do certain things for a wedding, and there's no emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I have to do this. I have to go to the church. Even though I don't go to church
want
ever.
me to do this.
My
Yeah.
parents
It's
want
the
this.
parents
So I
have
have
a
to do
lot
this
of
part
influence.
next. And
It's pure just formalities for them.
just
like
formalities,
step.
get
Yep.
it done, tradition,
Yep.
and move on.
That's it.
I can't tell you how many times we've heard that from like couples. They're just like, oh, we're only doing it because our family expected us to do this. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
the same-sex weddings we've done have been pure love, pure
Yeah. Yep.
joy.
All about
them.
Our
you know?
favorite moments are like, I can't never forget this. The wedding we did at the Foundry, I guess one of the grooms had a very tough relationship with his dad. His dad did a speech, and it was
He was
him finally,
bawling.
you know, acknowledging him and the relationship,
Yeah.
and you know, actually celebrating him, and they were just emotional and crying, and it was good to be a part. That's when you like
Yep.
Yeah.
really appreciate your work, and you're like, oh, this is a real moment, as opposed
Yep.
to
I'm
like
capturing this. Yep.
Yeah.
yes, capturing this for them, something
And
they'll remember
that's
forever.
a moment like nobody else gets
Yeah.
to.
Nope.
Like that's a very serious thing. I was seconding for another wedding where we had gone into it thinking that the parents weren't very open to using different pronouns, and then like we did the first look up on the rooftop of the Franklin Institute, and the father said the pronouns, and it was like, I did all this research and I figured out why it's so important to you, and like, and I was just like, okay.
Fogging up the camera.
Talk to them.
And it's like my parents do use my pronouns, but it was a struggle, you know. So it's like, it's just like, wow, they did research for you. Like it's, I mean, there's just a lot of things that you see. You see a lot of hurt, but you see a lot of love and a lot of joy.
Yep.
And you're doing something that like other people might not do that thing for that person, and you're the one that like, no, this is what you told me to do. Like I'm affirming you. Whatever you want, that's what we're doing.
So I have a silly question for you, right? So when, you know, because we're not part of that community, right? Is it appropriate for us to use language? Well, not language, but like, let's say we're posting on social media an LGBTQ wedding, right? The reason why I bring this up is I'm like rambling here. No,
You're getting in your head. That's what you're doing.
no.
Don't
Like,
overthink it.
no, because all right. So
It is hard to word things. So it's like,
I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll give you an example. Right, I was shooting a South Asian wedding, so this videographer just pulled out every single South Asian wedding like hashtag out there in the universe, right, and just like all over the video, right. He's not even a member of that community, all right. And I'm like, well, I'm not a member of that community, and I feel weird that you're doing, you know, I wouldn't say it was pandering, but like I felt like
it's almost like that version of rainbow washing.
Yeah.
So I think if you're only using that keyword and it's only being used like for that
In that post.
purpose, like it feels kind of icky. But like,
it didn't feel right to me. That's what I was saying.
yeah.
You
Well,
know?
because like you said, he was only using those kind of tags. Like, even for like my other queer couples, like I'm not going to use just queer tags. Like I kind of use like
I was like, yeah, it didn't feel right to me. So I wanted
Yeah.
to ask what your input was on that.
I think it's one of those other things that like it's not black and white. Like you do want to show to other people, like you do openly photograph these things, but I wouldn't make it every single tag. And like the same way that like I don't think that you need to put on the front page of your website that you are welcoming to LGBTQ
yeah.
couples.
I see
Yeah.
that.
There's
a lot.
other ways of
Oh my
wording it
God.
that
Yeah.
aren't like
I have like hashtag love is love on my it's I don't know if I need to do more than that.
On your
Or if it's enough signaling, it's like, listen, I'm an ally, I affirm, I celebrate.
I think
who
what
you are, what you
Rylan
do.
said, like, if you have it in your portfolio, I feel like
Yeah.
that's like a good way of not like shouting it out.
But what if you
like-
don't have that in your portfolio? Let's say you are an ally, but you don't have that in your portfolio. How do you?
Well, there's
Yeah,
that's
what,
going to be part of the marketing.
yeah.
summit.
What I mean, you kind of
Don't ask too much.
you kind of touched up on it a little bit of like reaching out to couples and saying, hey, I'll take your pictures. You know, it's I'm gonna be giving back, and I'm also building a portfolio. Like style shoot, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot
Yeah.
of people build their portfolios
As long as
that
you're
way.
not just using, like, do they get something out of it? Are you going to give them full access to the gallery
Mhm.
without asking for extra money for the download? Or, I know you like to give prints to clients and stuff like so. Like maybe like throw in a print for them or something that they might not have been able to get or something.
For the style shoots?
Like if you're setting up the styled shoot or something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a style shoot. It could just be a session, like just for you to build
Just-
that portfolio.
If you
Yeah.
if you want to specifically build a portfolio.
Yeah.
But I guess if you vibe and if they see through your photos like happy, genuine,
Yeah.
nice
Mhm.
message, then they'll come.
So one of the other things that I had done before I really had many of those types of photos to show is when you're on social media, if you're following some like accounts that will also post information, like I have one of those little highlight things that's filled with like education, and it's not just for like queer specifically, but other things within the industry that you should be kind of aware of or anything kind of happening at that time. So like I even know one, like when the abortion case went back to court, then they brought up like Obergefell and Hodges might be brought up again. So a lot of people were kind of scrambling, like, what do I do in case like I can't get married all of a sudden? So like I kind of reposted like how that would kind of be harmful if the abortion case did go down how it went down. But I also said like I'm an officiant through what is it, the United whatever
Yeah.
that church that everyone
Universal Life Church.
by the powers invested in me by the Universal Life Church. I was like I'm an officiant. I will ordain your marriage for you if you need to, like something like that. So like I think reposting educational content that
Yes.
isn't even necessarily yours.
And not just in June.
Right.
Yes, yes. So at any point, any of this
course,
stuff
yep.
is kind of happening. So like, there's a few like really political queer people that have a lot of educational posts, like especially now a lot with like the anti-trans bills. They'll post educational information, and sometimes when I see it kind of that it would be relevant to the wedding industry, I will repost some of those.
sure,
Like some of them are like kind of like breaking down myths or misconceptions, things like that. So it's like it shows people that like you might not necessarily have this in your portfolio, but you have
Of course, yeah,
information
yeah.
and knowledge, and it's something that you're looking out for other humans.
And be willing to own it, because some people are
Yeah.
afraid to own it or share it
Share
because
it, yep.
Yes,
Because they're
Backlash.
afraid. Yep.
yes.
So if you're going to take that step, be willing to own it and what
Yeah,
may come
yeah.
from it.
Yeah.
And be genuine about posting it too.
Yeah, be real about it. So, if any of our listeners have any other questions that you guys would like to ask Rylan, send them in at hello@focus-af.com.
Hello. Considering I'll probably be here part-time once the wedding season
Yeah,
hits.
Rylan's one of our editors, so
And then
We'll get a zippy
share,
response.
share
Share where we can
your,
find you.
Your,
Yeah, so
share
how-
your
yeah, so how can
social
our
media.
listeners find
Yeah.
you?
How do we find you, Rylan?
Oh, I'm at Earle-Lott Photos on Instagram, and I think it's Rylan-Lott Photography on.
you got to spell all that stuff. This is a podcast.
Well, so RYLOTT Photos, and then I'm checking what my Facebook is because
No one's on there. It's just me.
Only Ben's on it.
us older
Only
folks.
Ben's on it all day long.
All day Ben's
so
on
I'm
it.
actually Rylan _photos. I forgot about that part. So RYLOTT _photos and just Rylan-Lott Photography.
Was there a Rylan photos that was already taken?
No, I just shorten it because most of the time, I even get inquiries for my website. They're like, "Hey, Ryan," and I'm like, "Sure, I'm Ryan. It's fine." I'm really.
I thought it was Ryan too. I had to look closer.
Yes, and I'm really bad at correcting people.
I misspelled it once too. Rylan's like, you wrote Ryan.
Oh yeah, she was making the summit
On the
things, and I was
summit
like,
thing, it's like you're
"That's
missing an
wrong."
L.
But she thought so. She was making an Instagram post at the same time. She's like, "How can you see my screen?" I was like, "No, the one, like the big one that you're making on the computer." That's my buddy. I did photograph my buddy Rylan's wedding, but I am not Ryland.
Why you chose that name for your social, right?
Oh. Just I guess it was just easier than Earle-Lott. I
Alright.
just shortened it to
Yeah.
make it easier because a lot of people are like, right, what? Like, I've gotten Ryland,
yeah.
Ryan.
All
I
right.
don't even know.
I'm
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
make sure that we leave all those links in the chat, but
Yep.
The right place to find you.
the right link.
The right
I'll
one.
send you the right link. All right. All right. So what's today's hot topic?
Go ahead, Ro. Wedding horror story, or from
Oh, your horror stories?
well,
No,
it's
What are you doing?
same thing.
It's a story that has come down like a couple of avenues. So I heard this story.
It's like an urban
One of
myth.
his birds.
Yeah. So a bird told me, and a bird told that bird. So there's like certain, I guess, generations of
Birds.
of gossiping. So it was this person was a photographer, was shooting a wedding. Videographer shows up. It was a wedding that was abroad, destination wedding. It was a very high-end wedding from what I was told. The videographer takes the dress, puts it on a window of like this estate. Dress falls, goes right into a pond. And
Pond or fountain?
like a fountain that was attached, like built into the I guess the outside
my
of
God.
the estate. So now, like, you know, the photographer saw what happened, and he's like, you know, like freaking out. Videographer goes, gets the dress, packs the stuff, puts her in his car, and just leaves with the dress.
What?
Doesn't come back. Yeah,
Ever?
Are you serious?
just left. Yeah,
With the dress?
yeah.
Why?
With a wet dress, just. Yeah.
But you're in a destination. Where do you think you're going? You gotta get to the airport.
I think that videographer was local.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I think it might have been Nigeria.
Oh my god.
So they live locally, and then they just
Is
kind of.
it, maybe he took it to the dry cleaners.
He never came
He
back.
never came back.
Never came back. He just left. I
Like,
mean, at that point, like,
Why not just leave the dress and you
Yeah,
leave?
why just leave it
Why
at
take the
least,
dress?
you know?
He's
Let
saying he's removing
them
the evidence.
dry or something.
at that point, they're probably thinking, you know what? I'm just
They
gonna.
don't-
So what did
want
they get
this.
married in?
I have no
We
idea.
did, so
We didn't get that far,
We didn't
as
get the rest of
into
the story
details.
was not told.
Yeah.
It's unclear what happened
Oh
after
my
that.
goodness.
You
But
need to
it
find
is-
the rest of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our mission. What happened to that
To be
dress?
He
continued.
has to go back to the bird, and then that bird
You need
has
to
to
put
go
that
back
on
to
the
the other bird.
classifieds.
Oh
Maybe someone
my
will-
goodness.
like the I missed you post, like lady in blue on the bus. You were it was
Yeah,
4
at
o'clock
this time.
and I missed you. Do you want to connect? Missed connections. There we go.
You dropped my dress in the fountain on this day.
Well, you know what? That's why I don't really. All right, number one, I don't really do the hanging dress shot that much anymore.
Me either.
I used to do it, but at some point it looked like, you know, just like a little white ghost, just like
It just.
like hanging by the window.
It's ugly dress.
And
Yeah.
not all dresses hang well. Some
Yeah.
of them, sorry to say,
Yeah,
not all
it's
dresses
like-
hang the same way.
My whole thing is like, you know, we're all guilty of this because there was a big trend of putting the dress in like in these creative spots. But what the hell is a dress doing in the middle of the woods? You know, like, you know, or
Hanging
or
on the
hanging in
branch.
the third floor, you know, window.
Railing.
Like,
So
Yep.
I'm so glad that it's becoming less trendy now to do that. So I mean, if your dress is hanging nicely, you got the hanger for it, right? So, all right, fine, I'll photograph it if you got the hanger for it. But I'm not going to like get a suction cup with a, you know, and stick it on a window and like, you know, get you.
I think that goes back to what we've been saying most of the conversation about the boxes of what you're putting. And as us as photographers, like you have to do these certain things, like the dress hanging.
Get out of
and,
there.
like
I
this shot. And
I
that
had a
shot.
client that would not respond to my questionnaire. Just let the husband do everything. This was like a vow renewal, and 45 minutes late to the wedding.
oh no.
And then she got upset that I didn't get individual photos of her in the dress because she thought it would just gonna be standard. And I was like,
Well, I mean, there are some
When?
standard shots. You should get a bride solo. There's some group.
well, I did like of her
solos.
like when she came in and people were helping her get dressed, but I guess she wanted like a
Portrait.
solo portrait of like showing off the dress or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I also couldn't find her at the end of the night either, so I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I've gotten away with not doing those sometimes.
Yeah. Some
Yeah.
people don't care. Some do.
Yeah. It's,
Right,
It's
yeah.
more. Yeah.
We had a bride tell us, she's like, I'm not giving you no details. Or no, she's like, I don't want you to photograph the shoes. She's like, the invite and the rings, that's it. She's like, why do you need everything else?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so
she's like, those things are so played out, she said. She's
My
like,
my last 3 brides didn't even have shoes. They had sneakers.
love it.
Yeah, I don't photograph shoes or details.
Kind
Nice.
of bride. Well, she had
unless,
like pink, sparkly, like bedazzled sneakers, but they were important to the.
yeah,
So like I did
yeah,
those.
Yeah.
So
There's some things that are standard.
Or maybe it's just the kind of clients that we're attracting these days. Like they don't want
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
I
Show
think-
less of those.
But we still do
posy,
them
posy.
just in case.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you never know.
Yeah.
They
Right.
might say it's not important, and then like
I
get
had
an
someone
email,
complain
"Hey."
that the invite was like 5 degrees crooked one time.
I'm very shocked that that happened to you.
And it wasn't
As
even the
OCD as you
bride.
are.
It wasn't even the bride that was complaining. It was the groom was complaining that the invitation was
You got a groomzilla, huh?
like 5 degrees skewed.
Or
Shit.
the Lego
Crazy.
pieces,
It
like
was
upsetting.
it was Rose long lost
I
brother.
was gonna say,
Third brother,
you know
third
what?
brother,
I'll
brother.
fix it right away. Yeah, there was the
Wasn't I
bride's-
supposed to photograph it? The nephew like made those like bride and groom Lego pieces. I
Yeah.
was like, that's cute. Let me photograph it. It was like a little bit off the thirds in the photo, and that was a complaint in a line of like everything they broke down. I was like, I wasn't even supposed to photograph this. Like, you're not putting this anywhere.
No, I don't need you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
So you always
there
have to just, like, cross your teeth.
Yeah.
and dot
there
your
was some
I's.
type of for us that we focus on more on like moments.
Yeah.
You know, winter weddings kind of are. I don't want to say a kryptonite, but everything's stacked against you already because you're fighting time, and not only that, it gets dark at 4:30. So
And it's cold. Nobody wants to go outside.
that
That too.
and also your portraits are not going to be fluid and movement involved. Everything is staged. So this wedding was that type of like it was a winter setting. They booked us for our outgoing storytelling, and there was none of that. It was more like indoor. We're using light for everything, and they just picked everything apart. It was just like you should have got married in the spring then, because what you're looking for, given the circumstances that we were given, we could not deliver what we normally can, and we try to educate our clients, in those type
Right.
of
Especially winter
scenarios.
weddings.
That's a great
yep.
blog post.
Yeah, but it
I
was
was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Write it today.
It was, and they gave us a really nice tip. Like it was just weird. It was came out of left field.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
It was fine. But
It was like
Yeah.
they gave us a big list. It was like small things, like brighten this little corner up, like stuff like that. I
I'm
was
very
like,
shocked
what?
that email was sent to you. of all
Yeah,
people.
it was
yeah.
very weird. But it worked out.
Yeah,
That's why I always
once we
say
fixed
cross your
everything,
T's, like get everything,
they're
even though
happy,
it's
yeah.
not what you want to photograph as a photographer,
Yep.
get the safe
Yep. You
traditional
have to
stuff
do it.
just in case.
Just don't
I
show
tell
it.
all our social.
So you
same thing.
avoid an email, not from the client, but from the mom or so and so
Or
saying
a
you
bad
didn't get
review
this. Oh,
from the mom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
You seen that recently? On
Yes.
Speakeasy.
Mhm.
Yes.
All
we're
the
all,
best
we're all
stories come
part of
from
we're
there.
all part of the group. All 5 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you gotta please everybody.
You got to find reasons to say yes, right? You got to
Well,
deal with crazies.
I liked the one response that was like, you don't yes them to death, but you validate and then like the redirect. kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, he and I, we're probably gonna do a live next week. But I talked about it last night on my live. You said you joined?
Which is very much like you affirmed them, but you also redirected them.
to
nicely.
another solution that's more productive and not so negative. And
Because if all he did was say yes, like he
Mhm.
wouldn't have done his
Yeah,
job.
yeah,
Yeah.
I needed to be able to do my job. So we needed to get to a solution where we can both get what we needed to get.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the first step is validating other people's concerns, acknowledge them. Because really, a lot of the times, these people, they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
That's all.
See, and then that's a skill that a business coach could teach. But that was one of the
Well,
because that was one of the things I was like, I understand, but when you've never been in those situations and like had someone mirror that, that's a very hard thing to think of on your own. Like it's like, well, I'm just upset. Like how do I possibly respond to this? And it's like it's a lot easier than you think it is. But if you've never had that mirrored to you, if you've ever been brought up in a household where like that's like it's always just like kind of authoritarian, especially like
Mm-hmm.
have you ever waited tables?
no, but I've worked in retail and food services, just not waiting tables. But I also did not have great managers, so like I wouldn't.
That was a good solution. If it would have been me, I would have just went to the bride and groom and just.
Well, that's why you got fired from being a busboy. You know,
I did. I was like, your parents don't want me.
What do you want to do?
Yeah, can you talk to them? Because like,
Mom said no.
Yeah.
Can you get dad to say yes?
Because at the end of the day, is like a lot of times also the couples don't communicate with their parents either.
Mhm.
So you're like stuck in that limbo of like being the bad person.
Yeah, I'll be the bad person.
But I think showing the right portfolio, a lot of my couples, more and more, I think, because they are focusing more on them and what's important to them on their wedding day. Like my majority of my couples, parents are like out of the photo, like out of the
Yeah.
whole picture, period.
Mhm.
Even wedding day, they are
Mhm.
like maybe like one family photo. That's it. They're
Different
they're,
hands
they're
off.
with their friends,
Yeah.
like they're with their
that happens
like
to us a
yeah.
lot.
Yep.
Yeah, those are the best.
Not
Yeah.
me.
They're
Like,
And
I mean,
sometimes
they
I
want
feel
their
bad.
family.
I feel bad because like being stuck in that box of including them in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But lately, like over the year, they've just been like, you know what, like
Yeah.
if they want to involve them more, they would.
Mhm.
You know, so it's not.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did a coworker's daughter's wedding, so it was kind of funny because I kind of had to play both sides very carefully. Because she was like, "Well, the groom doesn't want me to be at the first look. He wants a private first look. You need to tell him that he can't take that moment away from his mother." And I was like,
Yes, you can.
"I can't.
Yep.
I can't do this."
Mhm.
I was like, "But in this location, there's like this glass
Yeah.
house,
Mhm.
so you could be like outside, so like it's still a private moment."
Yeah.
And like, so I was kind of able to work that out. So it was like,
It would have been me. You want everybody there? No, all right, you can't be there.
No, I saw and then you can watch from here or
Yeah.
from there.
And
as
it
long
ended
as
up
they're
being a
not
cute
in-
photo. So it's like she and like one of the sisters is like
Yeah,
against the
looking.
glass, like watching them. So like, you know, we got a photo of them doing that. Like
Yeah.
that was cute.
I-
But
yeah.
you
I had
know,
a mom like not listen. She just I'm like, all right, what you want to be there, you're gonna be there. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be the
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
yeah,
fight
yeah.
with the mom because she said she wanted it private, and then the mom was like, no, I'm gonna be there. Okay.
but also if you bring
You know?
attention to it, then it kind of makes it worse. So
Yeah.
if you're just
Right,
like
yep.
ignoring it,
Yeah,
then
I'm
it's kind
not-
of like
I'm not gonna fight with
let
the
it
mom
be.
at
Yep,
that
let
point.
it
like when a
but-
kid falls and you're like,
Yeah.
Where's the
Just
parent?
turn the other way. Don't make a big deal. Then
Yeah,
they'll
right.
just get up. Yep.
Well,
as soon as you say, "Are you okay?"
yeah, it hurts.
Well, it depends how bored I am at that moment. You know, if I'm looking for a little more
If
excitement
you
on
want
my
chaos.
days, you know, I might
It depends how
engage.
you feel.
Yeah, it depends on how I feel. But if it doesn't mess me up, right? If mom wants to be there and doesn't mess me up, then whatever. That's not my problem. That's not my circus, not my monkeys. That's mom and Brian's problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But like, if it's going to interfere with what I do, like that mom who told me that I couldn't be in the aisle, that's going to affect what I do. Then that's going to screw me up. I'm gonna engage, right? But
Yeah.
mom being a part of first look, you know, doesn't change my
let
job.
her be.
Yeah, you do whatever you want.
I'm
All right,
only.
so I don't want to
okay,
be
sorry.
a party pooper, but I'm gonna pass out from not eating.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So unless it's crucial, can we wrap it up?
I was thinking about
I'm like,
about 20
what?
minutes ago.
I haven't eaten since 11 o'clock.
That's why she's only drinking so much water right now.
You gave my orange.
Eat that.
literally.
I think we have a whole
I
orange
empty
between all of
stomach.
us.
I'm gonna pass out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, roll keeps going, and so does Rylan. They both keep going.
We'll
I'm
leave
just
you
like,
two. We'll be back.
We're eating.
Yeah, the three of us are gonna eat.
Cool.
All right. Anyway, I hope you guys learned a whole bunch about how to serve and celebrate and affirm
Everybody.
everyone. You know, LGBTQ couples, crazy moms of Brian. You know, just learn how to serve everyone, serve them as human beings. And I think the key takeaway that I think that we want to take with us from this episode is, you know, just be kind and serve everyone, and really come from a place of empathy.
Yes. Be a good human.
Be a good human being, and all that positive juju that you put out there in the universe, you know, come back to you in one form or another. But yeah, just be kind. It costs you nothing to be kind.
Yes. So thank you again, Rylan, for joining us.
Yeah,
Thanks
Can
for
you
having
This
me.
was very
Say one more
informative.
time where they can find you.
At Earle-Lott_photos. So RYLOTT_photos.
Awesome.
So that just about wraps up today's episode. Fuck. Anyway, guys.
It's not that hard, guys.
yeah, that's just-
You want me to try again?
No!
We're
Where's the
here all
whiteboard?
day.
Go.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. I hope you guys learned a whole bunch of stuff, a lot of cool stuff. If you guys would like to check out more behind the scenes stuff about what we do here, you can follow us at focused.af on Instagram. You can also check out our website at www.focused-af.com. And not only that, we'd love to hear some of your crazy stories as well. We'd love to share them with our audience here on the podcast. You can write us at hello@focused-af.com. And that's just about wraps it up for us here today. My name is Ben,
I am Karis.
I'm Jen.
This is Ro.
and I think we're focused AF, right? We're hungry AF.
We're hungry AF.
We're starving. Yeah.
So then we'll see you guys next week, all right?
All right. Have a good one.
Adios.
Bye.
Adios.
Focused AF is a fun, business-focused podcast for wedding creatives.
Co-hosted by award-winning husband and wife wedding photography teams Ben and Karis.
And Jen and Ro, where we help fellow wedding creatives with their sales and marketing.
With laid-back conversations and real talk with some of our most favorite people in the universe.
And with that being said, are you focused AF?
I am Focused AF today.
We are Focused AF.
I think I might be Focused AF.
Welcome to the Focused AF podcast.